Take, for example, the social order of the German government during the First and Second World Wars. That was essentially a government and a social order, and to favour a new system, a world not under the Third Reich. Okay, that's the change that was sought. So, when you boil down the definition of revolution to that, then I guess you can rationalise for simplifying it that far. But it's I would say that there's a better term. Yeah. What term better than revolution can we come up with? Well, very simple. Just take the R off the front of the word. What are you left with then? Evolution. Now, what do we mean by evolution? Well, the Oxford Dictionary defines evolution as a noun, mass noun. 1. The process by which different kinds of living organism are believed to have developed from earlier life forms during the history of the Earth. Definition 2. The gradual development of something. Example, the forms of written languages undergo constant evolution. The origin, supposedly early 17th century, from Latin evolutio, meaning unrolling, from the verb illuvere, early senses related to movement, first recorded in describing a wheeling manoeuvre in the realignment of troops or ships. Current senses stem from a notion of opening out, giving rise to the sense development. So, don't you see how evolution is actually a superior method to revolution? Wouldn't you say so? I mean, don't you think it's better to instead fight something and change something in your world? How do you think that ever comes to existence to begin with? Is there such thing as actions before thoughts? Think about it. The only kind of thought that doesn't come before an action is a reflex action, right? So how can we live by using reflex actions? We can't. Thoughts always precede actions. That is, if the thoughts and the actions are of the same thing. Like for example, the thought in the brain of sending a command to the arm to move. If it's a case of the arm moving and the brain signal to command the move, then obviously that is a thought preceding an action. So, don't you think, in terms of evolution actually applying more to our social system that we live in right now, and the necessity for evolution, when compared to the definition that we can give for revolution? What sort of things are we looking for that can clue us into revolution's effectiveness? What evidence do we have of revolution's efficacy to actually truly bring about social changes? What do we have any evidence, in fact? Well, it depends on what you're trying to apply the revolution to. I mean, like say for example the suggestion I gave to consider war as a form of revolution. For example, the revolutionary change that say England and the United States were trying to perpetuate was the death of Adolf Hitler, the end of the Third Reich, and thus the end of the war. And that's why they realised they had to kill him. So, if your only goal is to eradicate a leader of a country, then how does that really change anything? You know, the world of politics is one big revolving door. You know, people come and go from the corporate world to the government world to the financial world, to numerous other, corporate directions. And they just come and go as they please. I mean, who the hell heard of Barack Obama before he ran for president? I mean, I think he was a senator or something, but he wasn't really famous. But as soon as he ran for election, he suddenly became the most famous person on the planet, almost. Besides maybe Miley Cyrus and Lindsay Lohan. But yeah, it's strange how things like that can change so quickly. An idea can permeate so quickly through the common mind that there's no real reason to think that wide-scale social changes can actually happen, because I think they can. I mean, it's like one of the analogies that I use, and I've explained this analogy at different points. But say, for example, if you were a virus, would you need to invade every cell of your host's body in order to kill them? The answer would be, well, of course, no, you don't. And the actual true answer is you only need to infiltrate enough to actually infiltrate and destroy and compromise vital systems. Like, say, for example, the mass of your heart, for example, that doesn't constitute the majority of the mass in your body. But if you took that out, you'd be dead. I'm not saying that every part of the human body that is like the size of the heart, if you take that away, you couldn't survive. Like, say, for example, if you lost both feet, depending on the circumstances of how you lost them, if you lost both your feet, you could still survive. You can get prostheses, but losing the appendages wouldn't kill you. That is, unless you bleed out, whatever. But I really see the need for raising awareness about sticking with non-violent revolution. And I would probably term non-violent revolution as just evolution. Because in order to change something, you must think about it first. You must have the knowledge ground and the value ground to actually arrive at that decision. We instead of arriving at decisions, right now we just make decisions because they're informed by our conditioning. And granted, there's not much we can do to get away from that, unless we don't mind actually teaching ourselves a whole new language and means of communicating. But there shouldn't be a need to go to ridiculous lengths of absurdity or hostility in order to actually transition into a better world. The very idea that I think it's something like once 10% of a population aligns with an idea, automatically after it reaches 10%, instantly everyone is doing it. It's the 100th monkey thing. And it's just like that. So the idea that that social change, it can't happen because you have to convince everybody. No, you don't. You really, really don't. And that's the thing that I find myself pondering every now and then, that there only needs to be a significant amount of people. We call it critical mass. There needs to be at least a specific number of people that are considerable enough to affect public opinion, the way local government works, the way regional governments works, the way national governments works, and eventually how global governments work. Because, a lot of people say, we don't want a one world government. In a sense, we kind of do. I don't think that the USA and Europe or the EU are separate. I mean, they're allies, for Christ's sake. Things that America gets pulled into, we get pulled into as well. And why do you think that we followed them to Germany and followed them to Vietnam? Did we really send troops to Vietnam? I can't remember. But anyway, scrap that if that's inaccurate. I'll just preemptively say I take that back. I was wrong, just in case. But no, they were just done for stupid reasons, because like some tyrant rises up and says, "I will kill all of you," and everyone's just like, "Oh, okay." Everyone in his country, anyway. But that just shows how pliable the German people were. I mean, how indoctrinated do you have to be to fully accept Adolf Hitler as your as the guy who runs your country? How desperate do you need to be, and how downtrodden do you need to be to see him as a viable leader, as a viable role model? Yeah, that is yet another testament to how pliable the human mind is. The idea that it can be taught to believe anything. And I think it was even, was it Joseph? I can't remember if it was Joseph Goebbels or Hermann Goering who said that, or it might have been Hitler himself actually, who said that if you repeat a lie often enough and make the lie, I'm butchering this quote by the way, if you make the lie big enough and you say it often enough, eventually people believe it. So, and that's the thing, Adolf Hitler was very grandiose and he was very angry, so it sort of shocked people to paying attention. And, and they would just get whisked up in his rhetoric. And I think that's possibly why revolution does have a huge appeal, because it seems to purport itself at times. Like say for example, if I said to you revolution and asked you to, conjure an image in your mind of what revolution is, I guarantee you, I pretty much near enough guarantee you that at least half of those people will look at that black and, or imagine that black and white picture of Che Guevara or the Soviet Star or something. When they see revolution, either that or they see like a fist in the air or something. But I'd say a good percentage, probably nearly half or up to half, will say, have that image of Che Guevara. And that's the thing, we put a face on revolution. We've already done it. I mean, even with Anonymous, who I completely respect Anonymous and the things they're supposed to do.